Hello, everyone. Welcome to our 30-minute learning session, Reducing the Pain of Account Reconciliation. My name is Michelle Morrill, and I'm MindStream Analytics Marketing Director. Before I introduce our presenter, I'd like to just point out that we are being recorded and you are in listen-only mode. So to ask a question during the webinar, please type it into the question box over on the right side of your screen. You'll see a little area that says questions. And we will try to answer as many as we can at the end of the session. But don't worry, if we don't get to your question, we'll certainly get back to you afterwards. Today's presenter is Seth Landau, Executive Vice President here at MindStream Analytics. Seth, if you're ready, please take it away, and I'll join you at the end for the question and answer session.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Good afternoon, everybody. As Michelle said, my name is Seth Landau, and I'm the Executive Vice President of MindStream Analytics, and I head up the financial close and reporting practice. And today we're going to talk about account reconciliation. I know it's a great topic for everybody for a Friday afternoon, but hopefully I can provide some insight into the process. So we're going to focus on reducing the pain of account reconciliations. And just very quickly, who is MindStream? So we are a leading consulting and managed services firm that specializes in enterprise performance management and business intelligence applications. So we have a global presence. We have a global managed services alliance that reaches across the world in Europe, Australia, and the United States. And our consultants average at least 10 years of functional expertise, and a number of them are pushing 20 years as I am. But we focus pretty much in, again, the EPM and business intelligence space. We do a lot of work with Hyperion. We do work with other software vendors as well, but today we're going to focus more on the Hyperion side with Account Reconciliation Manager. Just a little bit about me. As I said, I've been in the space for about 20 years and have spent a lot of time implementing financial close reporting, account reconciliation, and have been involved really in all types of implementations on the EPM space, including financial planning, budgeting, forecasting, strategic finance, etc. So we're going to focus today on account reconciliation. And what is the fuss about account reconciliation? We'll get into that. We'll talk about some of the impediments to a good reconciliation process, streamlining the process, and really some key features as to what you would need in your account reconciliation. So we'll talk about validations, exceptions, exposures, knowledge sharing and the importance of communication, key information to track the reconciliation, and really how do we best accomplish all of this? And that will get us into a discussion about ARM and ARTS. Then we'll summarize, and then at the end, if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer them and to get you more information on them. So what is the fuss? Why the fuss about this? Well, most of you, I'm sure, are from finance or accounting, certainly understand that with all the different things going on with consolidations, with the budgeting, planning process, with the financial reporting, with all of the big deadlines and compliance issues, account reconciliation is often an afterthought. It's not always the main focus of the finance accounting group. But certainly compliance regulations with Sarbanes-Oxley coming in 2002 and really a number of regulations, Dodd-Frank and everything over the years, has become more prevalent and requires stronger internal controls and faster reporting of any material weaknesses or misstatements. So there is pressure to speed up the financial close, and the focus on analysis has certainly grown significantly. There's also disparate legacy systems that make it difficult to track this proper activity. So you have your balance systems, you have your general ledger, which is a combination of transactional and then pulling out balances. But especially the subledger detail, a lot of times you don't have good information in that subledger or it's not easily accessible. External auditors are very costly and time consuming for the corporate finance departments. And really a thorough account reconciliation process can reduce time and cost in those areas.
Hey, Seth.
Yes.
I thought it was just my computer freezing up, but it looks like your screen is frozen.
Oh, where are you seeing this?
I am
What
still on
screen?
page 1.
I'm going to pause for one moment to check the internet connection. I believe I'm in a good internet area, but for whatever reason, it doesn't seem to be. So I'm going to switch to another device. So excuse me for one moment.
Thank you, Seth.
So. Michelle, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'm going to resume. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
We're still
All right.
the first slide.
Let's give it a minute and see if it responds, because I'm in a different source and it's
Oh,
definitely should be stronger. Can you
much
see it?
better.
Okay. My
Sorry.
apologies. My apologies, everyone, for the delay. So as I was talking, the external auditor can no longer serve as the internal control point. So a lot of the information really has to be known before we get to the point of the auditors. So what are the impediments to a good AR process? So they're often very manually driven. So a lot of the account reconciliations use Excel sheets, are input, direct input. They can be very intensive, take out vast amounts of worksheets, and certainly prone to errors. Decentralization across the organization can lead to multiple processes that don't sync well with the corporate team. So, part of it is trying to centralize that process, have one system that can be easily controlled and branched out to everybody. And then lack of workflow control. So the preparer, reviewer, final approver, and even a peer review, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. Lack of built-in checks to ensure validation. Certainly, it's too easy to plug differencesses. So if you have these out of balances, sometimes it's easier just to plug them, if they're not considered material, but sometimes they're not, rechecked as other things get busy. No automation to quickly approve zero balance accounts. A lot of times a good number of your system is really, there's no activity in them, yet they stay open. So this is a good way to, using a proper system will help you get through that quickly. And then limited visibility to material exposures. Of course, ledgers sometimes are kept open well past the close period, because there's always final adjustments, everything going in there. It can certainly create issues with the reconciliation unless proper controls are in place to handle this. There's a lesser sense of urgency to complete the process in a timely fashion. And there's a lack of understanding between what we call balance compliance and transaction matching. Sometimes we are looking, reconciling balances, but there's also large transactional activity that needs to get reconciled, such as the bank activity, that there's really a better process or system to do that. So as we streamline our account rec process, what are some of the things we can do? Certainly chart out your workflow. So sort out, categorize your reconciliations, your cash, your AR, your inventory, making sure that the people who are dealing with these particular recs are kind of dealing with a specific set. They may be more regional. Somebody may take care of all of them within a group or department or region, or they could be sorted by, account activity. So whatever that process is, you certainly want to categorize them the proper way. Have good checks and balances with your preparers and reviewers. So make sure that there's not too much on their plate, that they understand what's going on with everything. There's good communication. Sort your reconciliations by balance comparison versus account analysis. And this is more of a system term, but we talk about the, let's say, source to source versus system source to something that you need to directly input the activity with. So if there's stuff that you're going to have to enter in information, keep that in a separate format than the ones that are kind of automatic source to source. Institute a set schedule to prepare, review, and remediate the reconciliations. So a good calendar is very important. And sometimes you need multiple calendars depending on the type of processes that you have going on. Implement a peer review process for post-audit analysis. So it's important not only to look at your reconciliations as they're ongoing, but also how do you review them later for remediation and for improving the process as time goes on, having another group look at those. Have electronic documentation as backup detail that can be easily accessed. So attached to the rec, how do you be able to provide that detail if you need it in a moment's notice?
Hey, Seth.
Yes.
I hate to tell you this, but your screen is frozen again.
I don't know what to do. I'm in the middle. I've switched to my hotspot is next to me. I've never had issues in this area. I'll keep talking. Hopefully, the screen will come back. If there is a problem, I will re-record the screenshots for everybody.
Yeah, we're still on, just so you know, we're still on slide 5.
Okay. It should hopefully catch up. So I'll just keep talking, and then if people have issues, but I'll try to make sure when we get to the screenshots, people can see them. So what do you need in your account reconciliation? So we have validation components, right? So there's a lot of exception reporting, certainly a write-off exception. In this case, this is from a client that I did some work with on account rec a couple of years ago. And they were very exception-based reporting, exposures, they very detailed in what they were doing. So the validation components, there's a write-off exception is completed for unable to age balances, but for source system balances, reconciling items that are aged over 180 days. So there are very specific parameters and validations that would kick off what would be considered a write-off. Of course, it has to go through the proper approval process, but you have that. A write-off form with appropriate authorization is attached, required only for items greater than $1,000. So again, there's a specific form that would be attached, and again, that's based on a validation of a threshold. Do source documents support the balance by legal entity? So again, we'll talk a bit about reconciliation by legal entity or by organization unit. If reconciliation crosses multiple accounts, is the balance accurate at the financial statement level? So not only from an account level, but from financial statements. So they're looking at it at multiple levels within the system. The source system balances and reconciling items, so if they're greater than some threshold, 90 days, 180 days, have accurate descriptions that facilitate review and articulate the actions being taken to clear the items. So you have to make sure that not only are the validations and thresholds there, but the descriptions that will help you facilitate the review upon those validations. Michelle, has it cleared yet?
Still on slide 5.
I'm going to pause and then put it back. Does it come back?
No.
I apologize, everyone. I'm not sure why we're having problems. My system seems to be working okay, but I don't know exactly why it's not coming across for everyone. I'll continue talking, and hopefully it will reappear. As a matter of fact, I'll go out of the slideshow and see if it comes into the screen here. So we're talking about exceptions and exposures as well. So along with validations, another key item is how do you track the exceptions and the exposures? So the account description sufficiently describes the purpose of the reconciliation and notes any exception items. So it's very important, again, to have the proper definition of that reconciliation. The GL balance is reasonable for the account, and the appropriate source system is used as balance support. So you have to make sure that, you want to give it the eye test and make sure that, the balance seems reasonable to begin with, because it could be something with your source system. The source system and reconciling items are greater than $500 or some threshold and properly aged, agreeing with the provided support. So making sure those, again, that the aging of them is appropriate. The source system balances and reconciling items are properly supported. So again, you want to make sure that if there's any reconciling items, there's that documentation to support those. And then unidentified differences have accurate, pertinent descriptions that facilitate review and articulate the actions being taken to clear the item. So again, everything is accurate. You can easily facilitate a review process off of that. And then in the end, having a system that clearly tracks the exposures so they can be easily highlighted by senior management. So this is something that you want across the organization. You want to be able to track this and be able to provide senior management a good tracking device. Another key feature is knowledge sharing. So this is, communication. So what are some of those key things? The manager articulates his or her analytical review of the reconciliation, not just checking the format, but making sure that the way what the recs are saying and how they're being processed is appropriate. The preparer and reviewer engage in regular discussions. So it's very important that they come together, talk about it, make sure they're both understanding everything that's going on. The preparer and reviewer have solid understanding of how the activity in the account rolls into the financial statements. So again, they need to understand how everything flows up. The preparer articulates the purpose of the account, the appropriateness of the supporting documentation, and the nature of the reconciling items. So the preparer needs to make sure that they've communicated appropriately in what they put into the rec, and making sure that it's clear so the reviewer will be able to easily work through it and review that reconciliation. You still having problems?
No, we are okay now.
Oh, perfect. Tell me if it goes out again.
Yep.
Okay, so key information to track the reconciliation. So this is going to lead to our system discussion. The account ID. So this is the key area, the key thing that pulls from the different, what we call segments or the fields of the account field. And this is something that would be unchangeable in the system. So this would be kind of a permanent record. However, the name, which is required, but more descriptive identifier, and that's something that has some flexibility to it. description, and you can put in additional description, which is optional. Then the organizational unit. So we talked a little bit about the legal entity, or that area of the kind of the repository, the area of the tracking, the reconciliation. So the location of the owner is specific for this profile. Then we have the format, is the reconciling support from a subledger, outside system, or Excel. So again, how we set up the reconciliations. Is it source to source, or is it source to data input? The process types. So there's different types of reporting methods: GAAP, STAT, IFRS, different types of processes and reporting methods. You could have a risk rating, low, medium, and high. Certainly a good way to track, even critical. And then there's auto reconciliation parameters. So again, if you have zero activity, or if it has matching or within certain thresholds, you want to be able to have that auto rec, so you're not spending a lot of time having to clear out every single reconciliation. And then maximum age limits for reconciling adjustments and balance explanations. So again, you don't want these things aging within the system forever. You want them to be able to be cleared in a timely fashion. So how do we best track all of this? So we implement different systems, right? Are we still okay, Michelle?
No, I think I'm just noticing it's not changing.
And I'm going to go back to the non-slideshow view.
Yeah.
That seems to hopefully clear it. So we have the Account Reconciliation Manager, which is ARM, and we have Account Reconciliation Cloud Service, which is ARCS. And really, from a functionality standpoint, they're very, very close. But the look and feel is a little different, and some of the screens and options are a little different. But what they both do is they provide great extensive workflow capabilities. They have built-in dashboards to easily navigate to open reconciliations and rec status. They're easy to build custom attributes. So if you need other types of reporting that you don't necessarily want to pull out of your system, then you can build those custom attributes very easily for reporting, auditing, and filtering. Utilizes the power of OBIEE Publisher to build custom reports. So it takes on that very robust functionality. Ease of data integration. So if any of you use Hyperion or Oracle Hyperion, you know that FDME, Financial Data Quality Management, is the key data integration tool. So that, or the lighter version, the data management that's used for ARCS, is available. You can build a schedule automatically using predefined, reusable, and scalable templates. You have the ability to manage workflow through calendar and Gantt charts. And it supports both source-to-source comparison and source-to-activity entry comparison. So again, what we call balance compare versus account analysis. So if you have to input data to match up the activity with the source, then that's one format. If you're bringing in a subledger or other source to tie against your ledger balance, then that's a different format. Can we see this picture, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. So system settings. So I'm just going to give you some key features of the environment. So we have frequencies, so you can do monthly, quarterly, annually, and what's nice about it is you can really nest them. So if you set up a monthly, it will roll into quarterly, and quarterly will roll into annual, assuming that those same features, because you're going to have those for each month and for the quarter, and then ultimately for annually. So you can nest them and then put in additional stuff for your less frequent items, less frequent periods. You can track by account type, asset, liability if you wish. And then, as I mentioned, you can build your calendars between GAAP, STAT, IFRS, or different types of reporting periods. So building a profile. So this is really a very important component. Again, I mentioned that the ID. So this ID is something you set up once. But the thing that you want to keep in mind is the more segments you pull in, the more you have to map and the longer your string is, right? So the more of that, the more detail, the more number of reconciliations that you have. So that's where custom attributes can come into play, because you don't have to pull in all that information and have a fewer amount of recs. However, if you need the detail and you need all of that, and you want to have that many reconciliations, then of course, you can put in all of that detail. So you have up to 9 different fields that you can put in. Again, you put in a name. The name is changeable. The account ID is permanent once it's in the system. You can choose, if you look down at the bottom, to either put in source data manually or subsystem data manually, or have it automatically load and blocked from data management. It does provide currency translation capabilities, and it is certainly very auditable. So this is an example of the profile ID of a client. And again, there were 9 different fields here that they had in the system. A lot of companies may only have 2, 3, or 4 different fields. Again, we kind of try to keep it as low as possible, but sometimes it is required for various reporting. So in building your profile, you have detailed instructions, you have workflow, so you can assign your frequency, you can, you pick your duration in terms of days, and then the calendar will automatically set up the specific month days to your range that you set into the system. So you can have a start day, and then you have an offset days that you can go back or forth. So you can do day -1, -2, day +1, +2 as you go through your process. And you also have the ability to have backup preparers and reviewers. So should you, your preparer, your reviewer aren't available that day, then somebody else can come in and it'll automatically assign to them. You can set your status on periods. So I know this is probably smaller to you because I don't have it in screenshot and slideshow view, but the circles show pending, whereas the triangles, the green triangles, show that it's in open status. So it's very easy to set it to open status, and the statuses are very clear as you go through the process. You have a work list. So basically, you can just see what is on your plate, right? Or depending on your level of activity or your level of access, you may be able to see many people's reconciliations. But you have the ability in your work list to go right to dashboards, to go to your reconciliation list, to go to transactional detail. Basically, it's all graphical status indicators, and it's real time. So this information is available right away. You have more graphical management of the workflow status. So I'm just giving you a couple of different views between ARM and ARCS. So Account Reconciliation Manager, again, the ARCS is a cloud product. There's still, both on the web, there's nothing really different, but the look and feel is a little different in terms of how the dashboards come across. But you can click on any of those, and it'll take you to those particular reconciliations based on your status, based on the preparer, based on whatever information that you're looking for or need to filter with. Your reconciliation form, and again, I'll try to see if I can blow this up a little bit. But basically here, it gives you a nice look at your source system, your subsystem, and then it automatically calculates what the difference is, and then gives you the ability to adjust those differences immediately. So you have these tabs up here: adjustment to GL, adjustment to bank. You can go in quickly and make those adjustments for your reconciliation, right? Or if it needs to ultimately be documented as an exposure or write-off or something of that nature, then you can have the supporting documentation, and then I'll show you the screenshots to get you there. Tracking exceptions and exposures, as I just mentioned. So these are the custom attributes and custom forms that you can create within these products to be able to quickly identify these and report on them. So as you can see here, is exception agent unknown or unable to age? So if it's, certain types of accounts are easy to age, others are not. Is it an exposure item? What is that exception? I mentioned a lot about peer reviews. So the information here would tell you who did the last peer review and when is the next peer review, okay? And then what was the result of that? So you have a lot of different areas, different information that's available to you there. And then, of course, the exposures, both from a reconciliation standpoint and from a financial statement line standpoint. So they're very easy to create, they're auditable, they're secure, you have these pick lists you can choose from and program, they're very dynamic, and you have plenty of area to put in commentary. Tracking agings and exposures. So again, there's the aging of the, in this case, like aging of receivables. So if you have a 0 to 90. So this is a little different from aging of the reconciliations, but this is types of information that you can put in there. So again, the custom attributes, you can put them in different currencies and then have it translate. And then it's very easy to attach documentation to these. The reconciliation form, so I showed a little bit about what that looked like before, but if you look at this, you can see now that they're in different currencies. So you can see here, here's the account ID, and notice in this case there's only 2 fields instead of 9. It's an account receivable, here's the description, here's the information, what's the status, the organization unit, and then you can see everything here from multiple currencies. So it's really great to be able to look at this in your local, your reporting, your functional currencies, whatever is critical for you to be able to reconcile against. And then you have your attachments, comments. If you need questions to answer for compliance purposes, you can do that. And of course, the workflow tracking. From a report perspective, gives you the ability to look at reports in Excel, which you can see there on the right, in PDF format, which are these 2 reports on the left, and then on the bottom right in HTML format. So really, you have the ability to see them in whatever way that you need to. And there's also different types of report binders that will generate different types of detail on the fly as well. So again, we have the ability to use the publisher, the OBIE, to build these reports. There's a number that come out of the box, and then you have the ability to use the report binders. And then we have transaction matching. So transaction matching is, when I mentioned before, is a little bit, when you're talking about balances versus transactions. So if you have your ledger to your subledger, you've got the balances in there that you're tracking, and then you're tracking some activity, some transactional stuff, but you may have a bank rec that has thousands of lines, and you're not going to use the reconciliation compliance to try to match up against thousands of lines. Sometimes you have thousands on one end and thousands on another. Like you've got different types of recs. I was at a client a number of months ago, a financial financial services client that gave out loans to many different banks in different countries. What was happening was they had their system tracking all their transactional activity, and then they had their bank recs tracking all their activity, and there were hundreds of lines on each side. So instead of trying to import that into a balance system, which isn't going to work, you have transaction matching, which will quickly match up based on rules and filters these things, leaving you with just the items that are not matching up. So if I were to bring this up a little bit, you can see here, like in this case, the bank to bank, and there's not a lot of items on here right now, but you can see the detail in them, and then you can have hundreds or thousands of different transactions that are sitting on either side, and then you can do an auto match that will go in and link up everything very quickly. It also has very nice graphical dashboarding tools as well. So this is a separate component of ARM or ARTS, specifically ARTS, the Account Reconciliation Compliance module, and it gives you the ability to navigate into it from there. However, it is a separate product as far as Oracle is featuring it right now. But I've used it, and certainly has a lot of great benefits for people who need to do that type of transaction matching. So in summary, and again, I apologize for all of the screen delays today, but hopefully you got a good idea of how to perform your reconciliations, having a coordinated plan, categorize them in an efficient manner. It's not manager, efficient manner, excuse me. Communicate with all involved in the process. Move away from a manually driven process where possible. So again, try to automate if you can. Don't overcomplicate your reconciliations. Make sure your exceptions, exposures are clearly highlighted. Implement a peer review process. And in the end, look for a great account reconciliation package. I think you will see that whether it's Hyperion or other ones that are out there. I like Hyperion very much. We've implemented a number of them, and they work very well. So, why not ARM or ARCS? Right? So I hope that this is something that you would certainly consider as you move forward in your process. So with that, are there any questions that anyone would like to answer? And if there's some screens you weren't able to pick up or whatever, I'm very happy to send you a copy of the deck, which will match up, and then we'll at some point maybe we'll re-record this so people can go online and be able to look at it. So with that, Michelle, I'll turn it back over.
Yeah, we do have a couple of questions here. One of our viewers is asking, how much time would it take to implement Account Reconciliation Manager?
It really depends on how many reconciliations, the amount of detailed data, everything like that. So, I mean, it could be as short as 6 to 8 weeks. It could take a number of months. It's a pretty easily configurable tool, but it really just depends on the amount of data, the amount of detail in your reconciliations, how many custom attributes do you want. So if it's a fairly basic one with a couple of fields and there isn't a lot of exception type of stuff and validations, then you can have it up and running in a matter of weeks. But if you are looking to get it very detailed, such as the client that I showcased some of this today, then that was a process that took a few months to work through.
Great, thank you. We'll take one more question, and this one is, can you tell me more about the transaction module that will help me with my bank reconciliation?
Right, so I got a little bit into that at the end. Basically, the transaction module will allow you to match up hundreds, if not thousands, of records on each side. So if you are trying to, do in a case, like a loan transaction system that the banks are inputting all their information into, and then they're going to tie it out with the bank reconciliations, right? So it's not just the balances, but really all of the detail that's in there. So you want to set up rules that basically auto reconcile those different pieces. And then, so you could pretty much take out 80 to 90% of that in one fell swoop, and then just have that last 10% or so that you have to report on and do exception-based reporting and all of that. So the transaction matching system is designed specifically to be able to match up all those records at one time or in a very fast order, as opposed to the balance system, the reconciliation compliance, which is set more to be, let's say, GL to subsystem. I mean, there's still detail activity, there's still all of that, but if you're trying to really match up hundreds of records at a time, that's where the transaction matching comes in well.
Great, thanks, Seth. We've gone a little over on time. I apologize for that, folks. Those who, looks like we're getting in a couple more questions. We promise we will get back to you on those. We thank you again, everybody, for attending today. We again apologize for the the software slowness of the screen, but we will get that presentation out to you for folks who missed some of the screenshots. Again, thank you, Seth, and I hope you enjoyed this and got some good information out of it. And we hope to see you again on future webinars. Goodbye, everyone.